Once upon a time, there was a girl named Anita, and she was a super cool girl, and she loved going outdoors. She loved like playing in her backyard and like climbing on trees and riding bikes. And she actually, with her neighbors, she would have roller skates on and play hockey. And so they would play hockey on the street in front of their house with hockey sticks and roller skates on. And she liked, um, let's see, she liked cotton candy a lot too. But one thing that people didn't know about her is she had a special watch. It was, they had a pink diamond button on it, and when she pressed it, she would shrink down to the size of a roly-poly or an ant. And at first, she would use this to like play tricks on people and do stuff, but then she realized she should probably only use this power for good, because it kind of was like a superhero power. She could do crazy things that no one else would be able to do because she had this power. So she decided to only use her watch and her shrinking powers to help people and help solve mysteries and just to be a good person. So she couldn't tell anyone about it because it had to be a secret. So one day in the fall, she left her house in the morning a little bit early. She was on her way to school, but she had some extra time. So instead of going the normal way on the sidewalk, she went down a little dirt trail. So as she was walking, she was looking around and she looked up at the trees. And in the fall, the trees turn pretty colors like yellow and orange and red. And when the wind would blow, a few of the leaves would kind of fall to the ground, floating down, and they'd fall on the ground. And she loved looking up in the trees and seeing the leaves fall. And when she'd walk, her feet would kind of crunch on the dry leaves. Crunch, 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 down on the ground. And she looked down, and there was a cute little river running past the trail. And the leaves that land on the river would be carried away by the water down the stream. And they'd go down some little waterfalls and some little rapids, and they'd float all the way. And who knows where they go? They'd probably go 100 miles away on that little stream. So as she was walking and looking around, this is called being mindful, when you're looking around and just seeing what there is around you. She saw some weird things moving in the trees that she'd never seen. They were kind of like red, and they were just little dots, but they were moving around in the tree. And she got up a little bit closer, and there were more of them. And they were moving all around the branches. And she said, "Oh my gosh, what could this be? What's up in the tree?" So she pressed the button, boop, and she shrunk down really small. And she climbed up one of the trunks of the tree. Climb, climb, climb. It was actually a little bit easier to climb when she was small, because she didn't weigh as much anymore. She just weighed like a tiny little ant. So she could climb right up the tree. And when she got up there, what she saw surprised her. There were a bunch of tree elves. And they were running around, and they were all kind of being crazy. They were going, what's going on? What's happening? What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? And so she stopped one of them. She said, "Hey, tree elf, what's going on? Why is everyone yelling?" And they said, "Our princess is gone, and we need our elf princess. She's the one who tells us all the directions and what we need to do, and she's in charge of the whole tree elf tree. And without her, we're lost." And Anita said, "What? You lost your princess? Your tree elf princess?" I said, "Yeah." And Anita said, "I'm on the case. I want to help find her." So they told her, they said, well, everything was just fine until this morning. We went into her bedroom and she was gone. And we worried that she was sleeping on one of the leaves, and when it blew at night, all the leaves are falling off the tree and her leaf floated away maybe. And Anita said, that actually sounds like exactly what would happen this time of year. So she said, I'm on the case. So she crawled down the tree, crawled, and got to the bottom. And then she pressed her button on her watch. And she got big again. And she said, okay, I bet if the leaf blew and fell on the ground close by, the elf princess would have just climbed back up in the tree. So something must have happened. Either the leaf blew really, really far away, or I know, the leaf blew and landed in the stream that I saw, the little river. And it landed with her on top and floated down the stream, and she's still floating on the leaf, going far away, and she might even still be sleeping. So she said that must be what happened. So now that she was big, her legs are big again, so she could run way faster than the little tiny elves. So she started running down the pathway right next to the river, running. She said, I am not going to be able to run far enough to catch the princess elf. I better get my bike. So she ran back to her house, and it was pretty close anyway. And she got on her bike and she started following the little river on her bike. Pedal, 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 pedal. And she loves pedaling on her bike. So she was actually like, this is pretty fun. I get to ride my bike and solve a mystery. So she was pedaling, and then the river came down to a little pond. A pond is where like the river comes in and then it gets big. Or sorry, the river comes in and then it gets big. And sometimes in ponds there's different animals like gophers. And also beavers. And beavers and ducks. And waterfalls. And waterfalls, yeah. So she was looking around. She said, I bet the princess got blown down here. And she saw one corner of the pond. There were a bunch of ducks, and they were all in a circle. And she was like, what's going on in this circle? So she ran over to it. And when she got there, she looked in the middle, and it was the princess in the middle of the leaf. And she was talking to the ducks. And the ducks, because ducks love elves. So the princess was saying, I'm lost. Does anyone know where I can go? And all the ducks were saying, no, we don't know, but we want to help you. And so she said, thanks so much, but if I don't know which way to go, I won't know where to go. And so they said, we'll protect you until you figure out where to go. So the ducks were in a circle around her. And that's right when Anita showed up. So Anita came over and looked and said, hi, are you the elf princess? And the elf princess looked right up at her and said, yeah, but how do you know who I am? And Anita said, I'm a friend of the elves. They sent me to find you. And the elf princess said, oh, thank you so much. So she jumped off of her leaf onto one of the ducks' back, and the duck swam her over to the side of the pond, and then she jumped up on Anita's shoulder. And Anita said, don't worry, princess, I'll have you back to your tree in no time. So she hopped back on her bike, paddle, 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 and pedaled all the way back up the street and all the way back up the trail and all the way right back up to the tree elf tree house. And when they got there, she set her bike down on the ground and said, all right, Princess Elf, I'll walk you up. So then she pressed the button on her watch. And then she was standing on the ground right next to the princess. And the princess said, no way, you can shrink. And Anita said, of course, that's how I talked to the elves in the first place. So they both climbed up the tree, up to the top, and Anita said, hey, everyone, is this your princess? And then the princess came out from behind Anita and waved. And all the elves said, hooray, hooray, you found the princess. How can we ever thank you? And Anita said, don't mention it. Actually, I need to run because I'm late for school. So she ran down and hopped on her bike and pedaled off to school. And that was how she spent her morning. And when she got to school, the teacher said, what were you doing? And she said, oh, nothing. I was just helping some friends. And the teacher said, well, that's good that you were late if you were helping friends, because it's always good to help your friends. So what we learned from this one is it's always good to be mindful, to always be looking around and seeing if there's anything new that you've never seen before. That was the only reason why Anita saw the elves, is because she was, instead of just like looking at a phone or an iPad or looking at the ground, she was looking around and kind of just thinking about how pretty everything was around her. And that's when she saw the elves. The end.